this too. Just to warn you, in case Sean, you or Kellye want to pop off and don't feel like being recorded, that was your warning.
No one told me that we were going live on Facebook. I thought this was a personal chat with just the three of us.
I just keep going. I you know what? It's all live. It's all good. I don't like it when it's too like stuffy. You know, when people get like super serious and it's just like, it's like, oh hell, we're just on Facebook and we're going to talk about a good book.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I can't be stuffy.
No. That's what we're going to do today. So just for a couple minutes to just give Facebook a minute or two to notify people that we're live so that they don't miss any of this, but it is recorded and it'll be there forever so they can always come back and see it too. But just real quick about Warwick's. So Kellye's coming to us from New Jersey, correct?
New Jersey.
And Sean, you're coming to us from Virginia? Yep,
yes.
Virginia? Yep.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Okay, and
just so down, BA.
And just for in case people don't know who and where Warwick's is, we're actually located in San Diego. So we're in La Jolla, which is a little suburb up above San Diego, California. So my little sign there says, for people who watch us all the time, getting really tired of me saying this, but it's a big year for us. 1896, we're celebrating our 125th anniversary this year.
Wow. Amazing. That's a blessing.
That's a big deal. So I've been kind of sprouting that. I mean, I've been saying that to everybody because it's sort of a big deal. We're not the oldest independent bookstore in the country, but we're the oldest continuously family owned. So Nancy Warwick is a 4th generation owner. And so,
wow.
Yeah, just pretty cool. So, you know, we've seen a lot of stuff in 125 years, but one of the things that we're absolutely known for is bringing wonderful authors to our audience. So Sean, thank you for being one of those wonderful authors. I tweeted out earlier today that it's rare that a book resonates with all of us at the bookstore, from our owner to our buyer to me to our booksellers. Sean, your book did, and you have a lot. Started with this one because we were talking about this one last year, and the one you're going to talk about today. I'm going to embarrass you. I mean, we can't stop talking about it, so I can't wait for this conversation. So in the comment section of Facebook, I'm going to be putting in both Sean's books. You can click those easily. I always like to say, any way there is to get a book, you can get it from Warwick's. You don't have to go other places that sell a bunch of other stuff. You can actually go to independent bookstores and they can send you your book. But if you're in the San Diego area, we'd love for you to come by and shop at the store with us. Kellye and Sean are going to talk for about 30-ish minutes, somewhere around that time frame. We would love your questions too. We always love that part of the conversation. So go ahead and pop those in the comments and I'll bring those into Sean about that 35-minute mark as we are going. So with that, I'm going to introduce both these wonderful people and get off this screen so they can start talking. S.A. Cosby is an Anthony Award-winning writer from Southeastern Virginia. He's the best-selling author of Blacktop Wasteland, which I showed you just a minute ago, a New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice, as well as Brotherhood of the Blade and My Darkest Prayer. When not writing, he is an avid hiker and chess player. He's here to talk to us today about this latest book, Razorblade Tears. Like I said, a book we can't stop talking about. With him today is Kellye Garrett. Kellye is the author of the upcoming suspense novel, Like a Sister from Mulholland Books, and the acclaimed Detective by Day lightweight mystery series. The first, Hollywood Homicide, won the Anthony, Agatha, Lefty, and Ippy for Best First Novel. I'm having
skip that line.
My tongue's going like nuts today. It's also one of BookBub's top 100 crime novels of all time. The second, Hollywood Ending, was featured on the Today Show's Best Summer Reads of 2019 and was nominated for both Anthony and Lefty Awards. She serves on Sisters in Crime's National Board and is a co-founder of Crime Writers of Color. With that, you two have a great conversation. Can't wait to hear it, and we'll see you in about a half hour or so.
Bye, Julie.
All right.
Finally, she's gone. We're in control. They're gonna regret it. No, I'm just joking. Sally Ann's freaking out.
I heard that.
Sally Ann is freaking out. Okay. So to start off the conversation, so I think a couple of years ago, I was crashing a mystery writers conference in New York. I'm not going to say which one it is. And Sean, or I call him Sean, I say Cosby, Sean,
Yeah.
PJ Vernon, who I call Philip, Alexia Gordon, and I went to dinner. And during this dinner, PJ was talking about this book he was writing about these two, like this gay couple, and they kind of have this issue where one of them kind of has an encounter gone wrong at a bathhouse. And that actually turns out to be his book Bathhouse, which is out now, which you should definitely pick up. And then Sean was talking about an idea he had about two homophobic fathers, one black, one white, who look into who killed their married sons. And so it's just really cool to have had that conversation, 2 years ago, and now to be here with you and to have I call it Black Top Wasteland, Razorblade Tears here. It's just amazing to kind of have seen this whole process. So I want to talk about like a bunch of things. You can also bring up whatever you want to talk about. So I think starting off, you ready? Starting off, so you said once in an interview about Blacktop Wasteland that you want readers to, quote, gain a bit of understanding about how desperate generational poverty can make a person. So what do you want readers to get from Razorblade Tears?
I hope people get from it the idea or the notion that, don't wait to repair or burn bridges. If there's someone in your life that you have a problem with, a loved one, unless it's, dangerous to your mental or physical well-being, do your best to repair that bridge. Do your best to reach out to that person, because time is not promised and nobody is guaranteed tomorrow. And I think that's one of the things. I think also another thing I think people need, I hope people take from the book, is that, the last couple lines of the book mention, love is love. And I think that's something that we all need to really understand in a more intrinsic way, that it doesn't matter who loves someone as long as they're being loved, as long as they're being valued. And I think that's something that's important to me. And I think it should be important to, hopefully important to people that read the book. I mean, don't get me wrong, the book is full of, my my trademarks, I guess, of violence and action and dialogue and so on and so forth. But ultimately, it's a book about acceptance. And
I love that you
it's
have
a book
trademarks.
about not waiting too late. So well, it's not an essay Cosby book until somebody gets killed with a garden tool. So
I think one of the things you kind of talk about, and I wanted to talk about this. I love the scene in the gay bar, and I feel it's just very powerful. There's so much stuff going on in that scene. So it was powerful on several levels, but I think the one quote that really stuck out to me, because I always felt this myself: some Black people hate gay people more than they hate racist. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, a lot of Black people are so homophobic.
Yeah.
And I never understood it. For me, it was like, we get discriminated against for something as, I'm going to say, silly as the color of our skin. And so for us to go around and then to turn that into to discriminate against someone else because they're minding their own business and like loving someone that has nothing to do with you, I just don't get it. So I thought it was just so kind of, I really love that you really kind of hit that hard, because I don't think people really talk about enough how homophobic Black people can be sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, growing up in a small town, a small southern town, there were two words that we used to call on-site fight. If somebody said these to you on site, you were fighting. If somebody called you the N-word, and if somebody called you a pejorative for someone in the LGBTQ plus community. And oftentimes, there were people who would get angrier about somebody calling you the pejorative as far as sexuality versus a racial epithet. And so I always wanted to kind of examine that and understand why that was. Why is there the search for civil rights as far as race or ethnicity is parallel with the fight for civil rights for equality in reference to sexuality and gender. And I don't understand why those lines don't intersect more. I have a theory.
I do too.
And it's not, and I hope when I say this, people don't take me as defending homophobia in the Black community, but I think for some Black people, especially Black men, there's this idea that our masculinity has already been diminished by racism. That a lot of Black men feel like they're fighting to be viewed as a man. That's why, it's such an insult when a white person calls a Black man boy. And so a lot of Black men take a very defensive posture because they feel like someone who's gay or someone who's trans or someone who's non-binary is somehow diminishing their masculinity, when that's nothing could be further from the truth. My masculinity as a straight Black man, as a cis Black man, has nothing to do with a gay person over here or a lesbian, a person that is trans. It has nothing. In masculinity is my own individual journey. It's his own individual journey. Or that trans man's masculinity is his own individual journey. And so a lot of times, I think that's one of the reasons. Now, other reasons are just, I think, unfortunately, some levels of ignorance and not understanding and not accepting. And so when I had that scene in the bar, I wanted to articulate it. I wanted to talk about that. I posed the questions. I don't have the answers, and I don't presume to have the answers, but I do think the questions need to be asked, and it's important that they be asked, because for me, until everyone is free to be who they want to be, regardless of race, sexuality, or ethnicity, then nobody's free. And so I don't know. I don't see how you can separate, the fight for civil rights. There is no monopoly on misery when it comes to that. When it comes to discrimination, and at least as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. So how did you come up with the idea initially then?
It's funny because on the one hand, there was an idea that was very serious, and the other hand, there was an idea that was kind of funny. So I'll go with the funny one first. So the funny one, I was having a conversation online with Todd Robinson, who's the former editor and publisher of a magazine called Thug Lady. A lot of people in the crime writing, especially like the hard-boiled noir crime writing community, know Todd. He's a great guy, great writer in his own right. But anyway, we're having a conversation. He posted a picture of Danny Trejo and Ron Perlman, two older male actors. And something about that, I wanted to talk about middle age, maybe a little bit more than middle age, and how youth, how those follow them and haunt them. And so that was one half of the idea. So that was just a social media conversation that kind of sparked an idea. And then I had a close friend who came out, somebody who's my age, who's the same age I am, someone I've known almost all my life. And they came out to their parents a few years ago, and the parents were not accepting of his sexuality. And I remember having a conversation with him afterwards. We're having a beer, and he said, man, maybe I should have just kept it to myself. And it just stung me so hard. I can't imagine how it felt for him to hear that from people that are supposed to love you unconditionally. But for me, as his friend, it was devastating to me, because I'm like, I can't even imagine how it feels to have to hide who you are, from the people who are supposed to love you, no matter what. And so those two ideas kind of melded together, and that's where the idea for the story came from.
Yeah, I have we call them Black people call them play sister, like someone who's a really close family friend who is a lesbian. And I remember, like, we all, like, usually it always is like we beforehand, like we knew like before she told us. And she made such a, like, she took me to Olive Garden, and I was just excited to go to Olive Garden to share with me that she was gay. And it was like, to me, like, my family, like, we're like okay, cool, like we don't care, but like it just, like, I felt like that so bad that she felt like she had to do all these things to prep me, to tell me something, and to have that fear, like I said, it's not a big deal for you and me, but it's so sad that it's such a big deal for so many other people, so did you have any like hesitations at all about it, like, because about talking about this issue, which I don't think we talk about enough?
I had so much hesitation. I spoke a lot. I wasn't sure if I had the skill level to talk, because I wanted it to be competitive. I didn't want to be, I didn't want to play, to paraphrase another trope, I didn't want to play Black savior for the gay community, because that's, I don't want to do that. And there's, really great LGBTQ writers who can talk about issues, specific to the LGBTQ community in a way better than I can. You mentioned PJ, There's Michael Nava, there's Greg Herron. There are great writers
Kelly
out there
Ford.
who are much, yeah, Kellye Ford, yes, my God, who are way more equipped to deal with that. But what I wanted to do as a straight man, I wanted to talk to the people that I knew growing up who were like Ike and Buddy Lee, who I firmly believe, and except in very few cases, no one is beyond redemption. I think anybody can find redemption, but redemption isn't a gift. You have to work at it. I like to think about redemption like somebody gives you this car and it's in pieces and you have to put the car back together. And if you do the hard work, then you can drive the car. But that's not a given. You don't automatically get that. And so I wanted to write a book talking to those people. Those are people I hope, in addition to everyone else, but I hope loved one who's gay and you're, expressing a homophobic idea, maybe you read this book and realize that, don't wait too late. But I mean, just on a artistic level, I went back and forth about writing the book. And finally I decided to go ahead and do it because I felt like, it wouldn't leave me alone. The idea and I know you know about this too, the idea just kept rattling around in my head and it wouldn't go away. I tried to start other things and I just kept coming back to it. And then B, I felt like if I can talk about it in a way that is understanding and honest and truthful and not sugarcoated, then that's part of my job as a writer. Writers tell lies to find the truth. And so if I could talk about it in a way that was honest and forthright, but also in a way that was intriguing and interesting, then I think that's my job. I think that's what I'm put here to do as a writer. But yeah, it was definitely full of trepidation.
Yeah, I feel like that's what I think you do so well, is that you take these serious kind of issues, but then you kind of put them in like an action story, and so people who come for the action, and also get a little bit of social commentary as well. Do you I'm curious, has anyone from your small town read the book? Have you heard from them, like the people that you wanted to reach?
Yeah. I've had a couple. I've had a couple of interactions where people were really, really, really moved by the book. People from my hometown, and people have contacted me online or sent me a DM or whatever. I'm like, wow, this means a lot to me. I had someone I know that is the parent of a gay child, and they were honest. It was like I was struggling how to connect with them, and this book frightened me. It scared me into forcing myself to get over myself and talk to this person. On the other hand, I've gotten some emails from people that basically, I love Black Top Wasteland. I thought you were a new voice for African American writers, but you're just pushing that gay agenda. And I'm like, I don't know what the gay agenda is. Like, could you enlighten me? Is there a cliff notes? Is there an outline? Does somebody have the minutes from the last meeting? And so you get a lot of emails like that. It's kind of disheartening, but at the same time, I hope maybe because they did read the book, some of what I was talking about will permeate into their minds and they won't be so obtuse about it. So, but again, ultimately, I wrote the best book I could, and I got to let the chips fall where they may. And so, but for the most part, the reaction's been positive. My aunt, I gave her an advance copy, and she read it, and so she really loved it. She liked it, and she just said, she's like, your books are so damn violent, though. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah,
they are very violent. I will say that they are definitely very violent. I agree with your aunt. Yeah. I love the women in your family. I agree with them all the time.
So do I.
Has your friend read it?
Yeah, and they were very moved. They sent me a really beautiful, I'll keep it private, but a very beautiful message about the book. And and ultimately, they it's funny. They're pretty pessimistic though. They because I was saying to this person, I was like, hopefully this will help, maybe change some hearts and minds. And they were like, no, it won't. He said, but you did a good thing. You did the right thing. And so I don't know. We'll see how things go. But I think ultimately it's something that has to be talked about. It has to be talked about, especially in the Black community. We got to stop running from it, because you see it everywhere. And not just, I think, like a lot of people say, yeah, hip hop is homophobic. It's not just hip hop, because the Baptist church is extremely homophobic. You know, Baptist ministers, especially when I was growing up, that applause line, that when they in church, they would either about somebody being gay, or they would say something about some. So that intolerance is a community as well, and which I always found incredibly hypocritical. You know, you'd have a preacher in the pulpit preaching about the evils of homosexuality, but he's also sleeping with 3 of the deacons' wives. You know, and it's like that glass house thing always bothered me, even as a kid.
I don't get. It's like you could be on your like think of like a Kim Kardashian, and this is not a diss on Kim Kardashian, but she's been married like 3 or 4 times, was married for like 2 months. But that's cool. But like a couple, like I feel like all the gay couples I know have been together for like 20 plus years, and like, you know, before they got married and now they're married, and it's just like, so like, how can you like, you're cool with this over here, but like this relationship between 2 people who found love or lucky enough to find love in each other and have been together for 20 years, like that's wrong to you? Like, I don't know.
It's crazy. It's it's one of those things that as a kid I used to see it and like, none of this makes sense. None of this is adding up, you know. But you know, now that I'm a writer, I get to talk about it, and nobody can shush me. I was shushed a lot as a kid because I asked a lot of smart aleck questions. There's a lot of
way.
shushing.
What? No way. I don't believe it.
I know, it's so shocking.
So let's change gears a little bit. So I like the title because it's evokes such an image, like Razorblade Tears. So I was wondering, was that the original title? How'd you come up with it?
Yeah, I love titling my stuff. I love coming up with interesting titles. I like combining like discordant words together, words that usually don't go together. It's, to me, it's part of the fun. I think I got influenced years and years ago by the writer Ed Mcbain. He used to write 87 Precinct novels. He was a pseudonym. That was a pseudonym for a writer named Evan Hunter. And he said in an article that he always came up with the title first, and then he would write the story around it. And I think I was like 11 or 12 when I read that, and it stuck in my head. And so a lot of times I'll come up with the title first, and most of my stuff is the original title. You know, I don't know. It's a little quirky thing I like. I enjoy it. It's interesting, but I also feel like I'm kind of superstitious about it, because if I don't come up with a title, I know some people who will begin a project with no title. I cannot do that. No, indeedy. I gotta have.
I don't have one right now. I have a work in progress. I don't have a title for it.
But see, you're so much more organized than I am, though. You know, it's like I admire you as far as like your writing process, because, you know, I'm lazy, and it's like,
don't believe that.
Like, oh, believe it. I mean, I'm not lazy when it comes to writing, but like a lot of other stuff, that the ancillary things about writing, it's like, I'll just make it up. I'll just make it up as I go along. But no, for me, I guess it's a superstitious thing. I gotta have a title before I start. I feel naked if I'm writing without a title. If it's just like title to be determined, like, oh, I can't do that.
So all 3 of your book titles were your titles?
Yeah. Now I will say this. I'll tell a story. Back when I was trying to sell my first crime novel, My Darkest Prayer, which was published by Intrigue Publishing, which is independent press out of Baltimore, Maryland. Before I got with Intrigue, I was with an agent that shall go unnamed, and that person hated the title of Darkest Prayer, and so they changed the title, and it just didn't sit right with me. I could never get my mind around it, and finally, what happened was they weren't able to sell it, and so we parted ways amicably. You know, we went our separate ways, and I changed it back to the original title of My Darkest Prayer. And then I was able to sell it to Intrigue. But yeah, I can't begin a project until the title sits right with me. And then also, like the epigram is another big part of my writing process that I think I'm superstitious about. I have to come up with a good epigram before I start. And then once I have those 2 things in place, then I can kind of work the story around. And I know it's totally ridiculous. I know that.
Wait, what's an epigram? What's an epigram? Oh, like
like in Razorblade Tears, that quote from Shakespeare.
Okay.
These sparks of tears. These tears. I'll turn to sparks of fire. From Henry VIII. Or like in Blacktop Wasteland, it's the quote from Frank Reardon that a father is a man who wishes his son. I always come up with a phrase like that. In Black, like that's old Roman proverbs, stuff like that. I can't get started until I have those two things in place. And then once I have these two things in place, then I can kind of work on it. But I know it's totally ridiculous. I know that has nothing to do with the quality of the story. But I'm from the South. I'm superstitious. I still throw salt on my shoulder and avoid ladders.
Your process. It's your, what is it? Is it the S.A. Cosby way trademark?
It's like
I think I asked you this last year because we had a conversation with Blacktop Wasteland. But so do your books take place in the same world? So do Buddy Lee and Ike exist in the same world as Bug?
Yes, I love the idea of an S.A. Cosby shared universe.
Oh my God, I've created a monster. I'm sorry, you guys. I am so sorry. I apologize for putting this in his head. I'm sorry.
Oh no, this was before you. This was before you said it, because in the original draft of Razorblade Tears, Bug made a cameo. He was driving a tow truck that picked up a car that had been had been damaged in an accident. But I did the second draft and I changed that scene around and it didn't work anymore. So he wasn't able to make that appearance. But no, I love that idea. I love the idea of a shared universe. So yeah, Bug and Buddy Lee and Ike all exist in the same place or at the same time. Other characters. I have short stories. Yeah, I reference characters in short stories. There's a crime boss that I reference in both Darkest Prayer and Blacktop Wasteland named Shade. So like all these different characters are kind of moving in and out of this shared universe. I think that's kind of cool. I think that's interesting. I think before we called it a shared universe, it was just crossovers. I mean, Faulkner did that a lot. A lot of characters in and I can never pronounce the name of that county where he said his story, so I'm not going to try. But a lot of characters in his work crossed over from one book to another, and I kind of like that idea. I think it creates a sense of, I won't say realism, but a sense of comfortability for the reader, especially somebody who's read something else that you've written. And it's like, oh, well, that's that character, or that takes place there, or I know those people, and so it kind of allows the reader.
It's like a reward for people who follow you.
Yeah, and it allows them to immerse them. It allows them to immerse themselves in the story, I think, a little quicker.
Let's switch gears again. So I want to talk more about just like crime fiction in general. So I know like Blacktop Wasteland is different in that it's not traditional mystery, where there's a murder at the center. This one is a bit more because there is the murder at a center, and I think sometimes people kind of talk about what crime fiction is and the idea if there's no murder or investigation, it's not crime fiction. I don't agree with that. So I wanted to get like what your thoughts were about that and like what your definition of crime fiction is.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely don't agree with that. I think, you can divide crime fiction into subsets. But crime fiction is anything that any work of fiction where crime takes place, whether it's a murder, whether it's a heist, whether it's a art robbery, whether it's a con game, anything. You can subset it down into murder mystery or mystery / whodunit. You can also subset it down into mystery whodunit. You can use the Columbo way where you know who the killer is, and now the detective or investigator has to find the murderer. Or you can look at, I defy anybody to say like the works of like, Donald Westlake and his caper books are not crime fiction. Or, I think a lot of people try to narrow down and try to set up hierarchies in crime fiction when it's not necessary. I firmly believe, I think everything's crime fiction. I think every book has the potential to be a crime fiction novel because every character in your book has the potential to break a societal or legal law. One of my favorite books, and I know nobody's gonna believe this when I say it, one of my favorite books is 1,000 Acres by James Smiley. And there's all kinds of crime happening in that book in the middle of Nebraska. There's poisoning, there's salt, there's, all kinds of stuff. And then, it's based on King Lear. But, of course, that's not going to be, put in in the crime fiction section of a bookstore. But for me, crime and violence is it's the voice of the dispossessed. It's the voice of the desperate, and I'm fascinated with the idea of exploring that. I think it's funny. I think I see this argument every 6 months on social media about literary crime fiction versus literary fiction versus literature and everything. Literature is the fruits of the labor of writing. Literary is a really cool marketing term that somebody came up with. I think there's plenty of crime fiction that is literary in scope and in intent. And there's plenty of general fiction that is just genre fiction, but they just don't put it in the same spot in the bookstores. And so, yeah, I definitely think crime fiction's definition is way more broad than some people seem to think.
Yeah, and also I feel like you were saying before, like people get so picky. Like, I know I write suspense, but I was writing more cozies before, and people act like that's not as not as respected as a noir PI book, which and this is not a knock on them, but it's kind of like, to me, making murder funny is harder than a bunch of dudes walking into a room with like one gun and like killing everybody and then screwing everybody. And it's just like, what I'm saying? And like, nothing wrong with that. But like, that's what the fact that you consider that to be literature, but cozies aren't, it's like ridiculous to me. So.
Oh no. Like, I mean, for instance, like I love like British cozies. Like I'm a huge Father Brown fan. G.K. Chesterton's little Anglican priest. And those books are incredibly philosophical, and they have a lot of theological debate. I don't agree with all of the theological debate, but they take it seriously. They take the idea of this priest solving murders and what murder means for somebody's immortal soul. But it's also a cozy. It's also a quaint, sort of whimsical story about this priest in this small English village. And so I think the idea that where something is set, is detrimental to the gravitas of the story or the importance of the story is ridiculous.
Or the tone. I think it's also the tone.
Yeah, definitely. I love reading cozies. I grew up reading cozies. So, I love like Rita Mae Brown and I was a huge Agatha Christie fan, a lot of English stuff or UK stuff. But yeah, the tone doesn't mean that the story isn't important. I think people mistake serious with a serious tone. Everybody that sits down to write a book is taking it seriously. Nobody sits down and stares at a screen or a notebook for 6 to 9 months to a year and not taking it seriously. So I think that's just ridiculous.
That's fine, Julie. So one of the things that you and I have in common is that we're not like these young upstarts in our 20s. So people probably think we're both like 21. Like we're not making 30 under 30 lists.
I don't know.
That's premature gray for you.
I stopped dyeing my beard. So
were you dyeing your beard? Was that a scoop, guys? Sean used to dye his beard.
Oh yeah.
I love it
during the pandemic.
I love it. So do you think that 25-year-old Sean could have written RAZORBLADE Tears?
No, God, no. 25-year-old Sean could barely get to work on time. No, I mean, but on a more, seriously though, I don't think I had the life experience or the writing experience to do it. I don't think I could have written RAZORBLADE Tears until I wrote Blacktop Wasteland. And I couldn't have written Blacktop Wasteland until I wrote Darkest Prayer. I mean, every book for me is a progression in my career artistically, hopefully. That's what you want. You want to get better every time you come out. And so there were mistakes I made in Blacktop Wasteland that I tried to rectify in RAZORBLADE Tears. There are mistakes I made in RAZORBLADE Tears that I'm going to try to rectify in my next book. But yeah, also I think mentally I just wasn't in a place at 25. If I had written RAZORBLADE Tears, you think RAZORBLADE Tears is bloody now? Oh my God, it'd have been a Sergio Leone film if I had written it at 25, because I used to use violence and action to mask what I felt like were my shortcomings as a writer. And so I learned to use that more judiciously because I gained more confidence in my dialogue, in my character descriptions. I'm still terrible at spatial relations. It's like I told somebody the other day, I said, if you ever built a house based on the way I describe it in a book, the house be 75 feet long and 8 feet wide. It's like, don't trust me on that. But
I suck at description too. I understand that. Like, yeah, you'll figure it out. It's a house, damn it.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what
it's a house. I stopped describing it. Yeah, it's a 2-story house. You've been in one before.
Exactly. It has a living room and a kitchen.
But
you got it. Has a bathroom, people. You got it.
No, exactly. It's not. We ain't doing HGTV adaptation, so it's like, But no, I think you learn, and like I said, like I said, I think there were a couple mistakes I made in RAZORBLADE that I'm going to try to rectify, and the thing that I'm working on now.
Well, give us you keep saying, like, give us an example. Like, what was an example you think you made in Blacktop Wasteland that you fixed? And then what is an example of RAZORBLADE to you?
Oh, I think in Blacktop Wasteland, one of the things as far as dialogue goes, I didn't give the characters enough room to breathe sometimes in Blacktop. The dialogue is very fast. I mean, and the way I write, and I stole that from, again, I'm gonna quote him again, from Ed McBain. He would do that in the 87 Precinct novels, where it's just sentence. One character talks, another character talks, one character talks. And so I didn't give the moment enough time to breathe sometimes, and so moments that I wanted to be a little more reflective don't seem that way, because I'm just doing this rapid fire exchange of dialogue. So I tried to rectify that in RAZORBLADE by slowing the pace down a little bit and putting Buddy Lee and Ike in a truck together by themselves, so where they had to talk, and there's more, hopefully there's more natural pauses in the conversation, so that the moment can breathe and they can ruminate a little bit and then go on to the next moment. And I mean, the book just came out, so I don't want to bash it, but I think one of the things I did in RAZORBLADE Tears, I think one of the things I want to improve on with my next book is, how can I put this? I wanted to articulate the visceral nature of Ike and Buddy Lee's rage. I wanted people to feel this rage in their bones. And so there's a lot, it's not so much the violence, but some of the verbiage is very strong. Some of the description, the internal monologue is very deep. And I think I could have pulled back a little bit. But that being said, a lot of people that like the book like that. I've had more than one person tell me the book made them cry. I wasn't trying to make people cry, but if that's the response that I got, I'm okay with that. But yeah, I think with the next thing I'm working on, also the thing I'm working on next is different from this. So it's going to be a different tone, well, a little bit of a different tone. But I think I got very much involved in the visceral nature of their grief, and their grief was expressed as rage. And so I think I could have maybe pulled it back a little bit. There's a scene in the beginning of the book with a garden tool, and I laugh about it, but I wanted that scene to establish the tone very, intensely. I want you to, because honestly, not to get too fine a point about it, honestly, Buddy Lee and Ike are anti-heroes. They're not heroes. They're both dangerous men. They're both men who have spilled blood before the book begins. And so I wanted to make sure that the reader got that if you're going to go along on this journey with these two men, but you have to realize who you're in the car with. There are no half measures with them. And so I think I could have done it a little differently. But again, you live and learn, and you work on it. And I think it's funny because every review that I've gotten so far, even the good ones, kind of pointed out, and I was like, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. I got that. So you try to get better next time out.
So I have a couple more questions and we're gonna wrap it up. So if you have questions for us, for Sean, or for me even, let me know. Like you can put it in the comments. Can I ask him one more thing?
Oh yeah, go.
Go away. And I'm like,
go away, lady. I want to listen to now.
You can join in, you can stay. I want to talk about like kind of publishing. I think you and I met in 2018 at PlasterCon. That's the one that you met your agent there. And then I actually won my Anthony Award, which is right here. It's a beautiful vase. There too. And one of the things I said when I got my speech was talking about how I don't want diverse crime fiction to be a trend. I want it to be a status quo, and so now I feel like it's definitely kind of this new golden age almost of marginalized people being published in crime fiction. I have some reservations about it, but I wanted to get your opinion on like what you think, how things are going now, and what you think the future is going to be like.
Yeah, I think you were exactly right. You hit the nail on the head with that. I don't want this to be a trend. I think we all remember back in the mid 90s, if you're old enough, like I am, that there was a trend of Black fiction, maybe not crime fiction, but Black journal fiction. There was the whole Zane, Terry McMillan, Omar Tyree moment in publishing, and it was great. And then it seemed like it disappeared.
Right. Same thing with crime fiction, like Walter and all like Barbara Neely and Valerie Wilson Wesley. Walter still publishes, obviously, but
and so I'm hoping that as time has changed, I think books like yours, books like mine, books that represent the full breadth of the writer of color experience, I think they're helping to shift the dynamic. Because I think at one point there was an idea in publishing that only one type of Black or brown book sold. It had to be this template, and it's the only thing that worked. And so I think when you have a beautiful, wonderful, cozy, like The Detective by Day series, or your next book, Like a Sister, which is an intense, domestic thriller, or you have a book like Yasmin's book, Her Name is Night, which is basically an espionage thriller with an African native. When you have books like that coming out, or you have books like PJ's book, because I think, again, there's an intersectionality with LGBTQ and writers of color. So you have a book like PJ. I remember 5 years ago, and Greg Harris said this today in a blog post, I would never imagine a book like PJ's would be published.
Right.
Then again,
by a big five publisher. That's the thing too.
Yeah, by a big five publisher. Yeah. I mean, like 5 years ago, also 5 years ago, I couldn't imagine a big five publisher like Flatiron publishing a rural Southern noir with African-American leads.
Right.
And
not only that,
I do think things are changing.
They're putting their marketing and promotion behind it, which I think a lot of times will happen is sometimes publishers will buy books and then they'll just let them fail. And the fact that like you and I are here doing this at Warwick's, that might not have happened 5 years ago.
Because it's all a machine. I mean, that machine is just, and it has to get the marketing.
Right. And the marketing is
so much that's published. There's so much that's published, good, bad, and different. Yeah. And for things to bubble up takes a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. So
I'll say one more thing before we start taking the question. I'll finish that. I want to finish my thought on that though. But I will say this. We all know that publishing is a business at the end of the day.
Right.
And if books like this, books like yours, other books make money, then it's a self-perpetuating idea. Oh, this book made money, we're gonna do this. What I don't want to happen is for somebody in a publishing position to say, oh, okay, well, we got to have every African-American crime novel has to be Black Tie Wasteland.
Right.
Or every, gay crime novel has to be Bathhouse. And I'm sure PJ would go along with that idea as well. I want people to be able to write from their perspective, whatever that perspective is. And so I'm crossing my fingers and my toes that this is not a trend, that this becomes another facet of publishing. So
I think on the writing end, we're gonna definitely do our jobs to do it, and hopefully readers do their jobs of buying the book from places like Warwick's. But also, you can go to your library and you can request that your library buy it. You don't have to buy it if you can't afford it. You can tell your friends about it. You can share the book, things like that. You can do, and then hopefully publishers will do their things. They'll put their marketing muscle behind these books as well. So.
Because it is true. It's you're right, Sean. It is a business. I mean, we're in the business for selling books. I mean, it's all part of the circle that we're in. But a good book will rise.
Fingers crossed.
And that's what we all hope for. It takes a lot, because there's a lot of good books that pass art that don't ever seem to quote make it, but they're great books. And to your point, Kellye, and there's somebody in the comment section that was talking about how she loves cozies and and now she's into the darker crime thrillers. But the thing is that we all read along a spectrum, and we all can't just read one thing. And what kind of bothers me too, I think we were, it was an agreement, is like this idea that something's better than something else.
Right. Exactly.
They're both hard to write.
Right.
Writing is hard. That's why.
It's very
writing is hard. And so, and
Yes,
there's an
ma'am.
audience
ma'am.
pretty much for everything. And somebody like me, I like reading across one our reps kind of get frustrated with me because they can't peg me. Because I love reading across so many different things. They can't quite give me that book that's like, oh, you'll like this one, because they don't know.
Yeah, I get that.
So there has to be something.
Exactly.
There has to be something for everybody. So Maureen is asking, Sean, what can you tell us about your next book?
Oh, okay. I'll give you the elevator pitch. So my next book is tentatively titled All the Sinners Bleed. And it's basically about the story of the first Black sheriff in a small southern town in 2017. And on the 1-year anniversary of his election, there's a shooting at the school, and a beloved high school teacher is murdered. And then his assailant is killed by the sheriff's deputies, even though the sheriff tries to stop the deputies from shooting him. And so it seems like it may be suicide by a cop or it's a bad police shoot. But before he can even get into that, he finds a note pinned to the assailant's chest that says, go through the teacher's phone. And once he goes through the phone, he finds out that the teacher, the assailant, and a third mystery person were a trio. Okay, but it's a murder mystery, and it's also talking about policing and what it means to be a policeman, a man, a law enforcement officer of color, in this day and time. So it takes place in a small southern town, as most of my stuff does. I like to say it's like True Detective meets Justified. So.
Oh, nice. What's the epigram? Because I know you have one.
Oh,
good job, Kellye. Good job.
Thank you.
Applause.
It's actually a line from Revelations about the moon turning blood, the sun turning blood red, and the moon turning black as sackcloth. And so it's a line from a book of Revelations, because religion plays a big part of the story too. Because religion plays a big part in small southern town. I'm in a small town. I grew up in a town of 9,000 people. We have 21 churches. So,
wow,
that's a southern town for you.
What's that? Swinging a dead cat?
Yeah.
You one?
Exactly.
Okay, so talking about the epigraphs. So why the Shakespeare one for Razorblade Tears?
Oh, it just was the perfect one. It is
perfect.
I went to. I don't want to advertise, but I went to a website on Google that will pop up quotes, and I just typed in quotes about revenge, and a bunch of stuff came up, and then I saw that one, and that was it. That was the one. It just spoke to me. So, and I loved it because it had something about tears, and it kind of went along with the book title, so it was pretty cool.
For sure. And one
I always imagine.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I always imagine when I'm writing the epigram that it's Morgan Freeman saying it before the book starts. So it's all.
Wait, did you read it?
It's always Morgan Freeman.
I'm not Morgan Freeman, but I'll read it. It says, "My drops of tears, I'll turn to sparks of fire." So that's the epigraph.
I love that though. Now, Sean, every time I read one of them, I'm going to hear Morgan Freeman reading it to me. I love that. It's so good. Well, back to the title of the book.
I'll get busy dying.
To the title of the book and everything, and then back to the last few lines. Oh my, I can't wait for everybody to read it. And those last few lines, it kind of puts the title and the epigram and everything in this circle that is just, it's fantastic. I love that last part. Real quick too though, because I think it's kind of interesting for people. We talked a little bit about this before the event started. We talk about it being quote an overnight success, but you've been writing since you were in high school. Both of these books came out back to back. Were they both done, or was Blacktop Wasteland done and then you finished Razorblade Tears?
Blacktop Wasteland was done, and then once we sold it, I went right into doing Razorblade Tears, because I'll be honest, I didn't really understand the width and breadth of Macmillan Publishing. Like, I knew it was Flatiron, but I wasn't that familiar with them. So I was like, all right, and my experience before that was with a smaller publisher. So my mindset was, all right, well, I sold the book, we'll do a couple things. We'll maybe have an event here and there. I'm going to get right back to working on the next thing. And so it was like, so I finished it as they were ramping up, doing the edits for Blacktop and all that kind of stuff. But then once Blacktop came out, it was like, wow. Like right now, the thing I'm working on now is I haven't done it yet because I'm doing it in a different way because I got so much stuff going on. I just finished signing like 500 books. So I got so much stuff going on with the promotion for RAZORBLADE. I have to.
I don't think people realize the author. I called it in an interview like the author hat and the writer hat. I heard someone describe it as that, and it's hard to balance because like right now I'm doing page proofs for like a sister, and I'm trying to write I'm trying to start the next book because I'm under contract too, and it's like it's hard to be into two worlds of like this world
promoting,
of I write first person, so like to be in that world of trying to get everything together author wise for like a sister, but also I need to write this other book, and like the same thing, then promotions happen and events happen and things like that, like just to juggle all that can be really tricky. Not that I'm complaining, but
it's crazy.
Tricky.
Like, oh no, I love it, but it's crazy because like I had to sign 500 hard copy books. Then I have a UK publisher. I had to sign like 1,500 title pages, so the individual pages, and
that's hard to do.
Then
they're not gonna send 1,500 books.
It gets worse. It gets worse because I sent it back to them, and UPS lost them, and I had to redo it. So I had to do another 1,500.
People to sign individual pieces of paper is not easy. That is a hard. It's easier actually to sign the books.
Sean, you have to go on eBay. Someone's selling your title pages right now on eBay. So just go there and get them.
I feel sorry for the people to get them because they all look like EKG patterns. So,
just as up and down.
Exactly.
I can tell a funny story. So my mother used to be married to a baseball player. And so she used to sign his cards sometimes for him. And she's gonna kill me for telling this. And so like we were looking at a picture of one of his baseball cards. She's like, "Oh, that's my signature." And I was like, "Oh, some poor person has a card. They're so excited because his signature and my mother's like."
Oh, you got it. That's a story idea. That's a story prompt right there.
That is such a story prompt. And all those people on eBay that are buying things that are just But so then that means though that Sean, your next book, because these came out like bang bang, which was great for us that are fans, but now we're probably waiting now. I don't know that 2022, it's probably 2023, huh?
Somewhere either late 2022 or 2023. Because on top of that, I have a really good agent who got me a bunch of other stuff that I'm doing that I can't talk about yet. I'm dying to talk about it.
Okay.
But I'm doing 2 different secret projects. And I just got a 3rd secret project that I can't talk about, which is killing me. But
I love it. Secret stuff. We're like not only thrillers, but we're in espionage now. Secret stuff.
So I'm writing nonstop. So I'm hoping that I'll be finished with all my secret projects by February of 2022. So I can actually take like a couple months off and just take a breather and kind of recharge too. Because I mean, I love to write and I have a lot of stories I want to write, but at the same time, I don't want to get into a place where I'm being redundant. I don't want to get in a place where my stories start to seem flat.
Right.
So I just
or formulaic, because that can sometimes happen too.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I definitely need to take a couple months off. And then the book that I was talking about, I'm trying to work on. It's probably my most, I would say, ambitious book because it's a single character driven story, but it's also going to be about this town. So they're going to be chapters that are like from the town's point of view, not as an actual character, but sort of like that. I'm stealing that from Stephen King from Salem's Lot. He did that with Salem's Lot, where every couple of chapters he talked about the history of the town. And so I'm kind of doing that. And it's a murder mystery. And I figured out who the killer was until like today. I was going for a walk and I thought up a new wrinkle for who the killer is, and now I'm like, oh, I gotta go back and fix that. I mean, that sounds pretty cool. So I'm working on all of that.
It's so good.
So yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
All right, I could keep you here all night asking you questions, but we probably need to go. So 2 things though. So Sean, I think that you're going to be at the San Diego Festival of Books. Have you already done that interview for that?
Actually, we're going to do that interview tomorrow. Or Thursday. No, it's tomorrow. Doing it tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. Tomorrow, like at 1:00.
Okay. So
tomorrow.
And then that will air. San Diego Festival of Books is August 21st. So we got to see you now, and then people can come back and see another interview with you on August 21st for the Festival of Books. So like I said, you got a lot of San Diego love here. So
Wow, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it so much.
thank you. Hey, Kellye, so tell people where they can follow you, find you if they want to find out more information about what's going on in your world and writing world.
I have a brand new website. So my name is spelled weird. It's KELLYEGARRETT. So it's kellyegarrett.com. I'm on the Twitter at Kellye Kell, so KELLYEKELL. Like a Sister comes out March 8th, 2022. Lori Raider Day described it as it's a domestic suspense for the Instagram generation. So it's very funny, very twisty, very voicey, as my editor calls it. And so the arcs will be out for that. The galleys will be out next month. So if you're on that galley, check it out. I'm
wondering if we should be having a switch conversation maybe in March of next year.
Yes, I want Sean to interview me. I would love to see you with Sean.
So we're gonna, I want that interview. So I need you to talk to your publicist.
I would love to do that because
all the payback.
I have an advance. I have an early copy of Like a Sister, and it is an incredible book. It is a book that has a voice that is not stoic but strong. Not that idea that it's a story where the character is flawed and human. She's not perfect, but she doesn't have to be. But she's perfect for us as readers. So I can't wait to talk about it.
Love it.
Thank you. And so glad I scared it to you.
Right about that. Hey, there's an important thing called a blurb that I think we're going to need to get from you, Sean, for that.
Oh, of course.
My editor,
that's
like, what?
That's what we do.
Yeah,
that's what we do. And you know what? And we do it for books, so our fellow booksellers know too. So it's like there's all kinds of that fun stuff going on. Sean, for you, do you have a website that you like to send people to? Oh, go ahead.
Does not.
I do not have a website because I'm old school. I need to get one. But you can follow me on Twitter at Black Lion King 73, where I have really random thoughts at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I love it.
And so you can follow along when I'm stuck on a plot point and I just go on Twitter and say the crazy stuff that comes to my mind, which I terrify my poor agent every time I get on Twitter. But I want to say this before we go. I'm so grateful to Kellye and Gigi and Walter for starting Crime Writers of Color. As an African-American crime writer, a lot of times in the past, I used to go to events and do things, and even though people were very gracious, everybody went out of their way to make you feel welcome, it still feels like sometimes maybe you were alone, and Crime Writers of Color is an incredible umbrella that has a lot of people under it, and it really, I don't think I would be doing the things I'm doing now if it wasn't for the support of that group. So I just wanted to say that before we go.
That's huge. Let me ask you a question about that. Does that have a website? Is there a
website?
For,
it's crimewritersofcolor.com. And so it was founded by me, Walter Mosley, who I'm sure everyone knows, and Gigi Pondian, who's another Anthony Award-winning author. We have over 300 members. So definitely check out crimewritersofcolor.com. And also go like a book site, and we have a podcast, we have a newsletter. So definitely check it out.
And do you guys list each other? Do you guys list like events that are happening too for different authors and
stuff?
That's
a genius idea, Julie. I think we should start doing that. I'm gonna mind you, I don't ever do that. I just get volunteers. So I'm gonna ask someone to volunteer to do that. Thank you.
Because it just like, it's easy to click on that stuff and just like follow that away.
That's a really great idea. I'm gonna actually message Gigi about that right now.
See, everybody gets something out of these. Everybody gets something.
I'm not gonna give you any credit. I'm like, Gigi, I had the best idea by myself, not talking to anybody. It just came to me.
It just like popped out of the sky.
It's like out of the ether.
Yeah, it just came out of the air. It's a brilliant idea.
Don't worry, I get that all the time. I see my stuff sometimes. I go, I was the one that thought of that. Hey, it was really fun having you both. Sally Ann, I see that you're on here. Sally Ann put Kellye, she put your website on there, so and she put Crime Writers of Color on there too. So this was super fun. I'm gonna say goodnight to Facebook and stop the recording. So good night, everybody.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Good night. Bye. Have a